The team so well represented here in this APAC division. We Ate the Cake, I'm loving these team names. BAT, Fiery Kittens, another DRL team, then down into the Evo, rounding out the top 5 of that Division C.
All right, well, it's been hotly contested so far, Anna, but let's talk about tonight's course. So the riders will tackle the 2015 World Championship course around Richmond, Virginia. It's a 16.2 kilometre course, and the riders will cover that twice for a total distance of 32.5 kilometres. Boy, oh boy, is it a tough one, Anna. Out on course, they have 4 intermediate sprint points and obstacles, and we'll talk about how important that is in a second. The first 10 kilometres is reasonably flat, but then they head up Libby Hill, which has some cobbles, and that's certainly a tough one, and then up 23rd Street, and the finish, it certainly isn't easy. It's also a slog uphill. What kind of riders are you expecting to be able to make the distance tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. That first 10K so flat, but with a couple of sprints, you're going to see some of those teams, like I said, Aero in the women's field, or maybe Relentless in the men's, just really lighting that up with those first intermediary sprint points. The question will be, can they keep away? If they can stay away in those 2 sprints, then it's going to be sort of more of the puncher climber. But if they're still in a big pack, you're going to be looking for those really lightweight riders putting out the huge watts per kg up Libby and then again up the 23rd climb. I mean, it's going to be interesting this women's race. You see Lizzie Deignan in the real life 2015 World Champs. She had a sprint finish in the end with about 9 riders. So, will that happen tonight? I'm not sure. We didn't see that in the Premier Division, which was earlier today. I don't want to throw out my pick just quite yet. We'll just see what the form's like early on, but I'll be going more of that big power 1 minute sort of big watts rider today.
Well, Lizzie Deignan certainly had a brilliant race that day, sprinting to victory ahead of Anna van der Breggen and Megan Garnier. But it was Aussie Tiff Cromwell who made a pretty last-ditch attack and nearly stayed away. She had such a good ride. And I think that a lot of the riders will take that opportunity in those final kilometres to throw out a late-minute attack. I think that's a really good strategy to have. But of course, it does all come down to points. With so many intermediate sprints along the way, there's the 4 out on course and also the start-finish line through that first lap. What kind of strategy do you think that the teams will be employing out there today?
Yeah, again, it's interesting with the race today compared to the first one. Points are only down for the top 3 over the first sprint stages and the QOMs. So do you want to lay everything on the line and put down some massive sprints and then maybe, fall off the back of the pack later and not be able to get those high quality points at the end of the race today? Or, what we saw earlier today was some sacrificial lambs. Do you send some riders off, just get them sprinting their legs out and they're not there at the finish, but they got you some valuable points along the way?
Well, the riders are out on course now. I don't expect anybody to go too hard too early, but what also comes with these intermediate sprints are, of course, power-ups. And Anna, the power-ups could really play into how things unroll today.
Oh, every time on Zwift, every time you're looking at power-ups. I mean, it's my favorite part of the game. You just can really spice up a race with the kind of power-up you're going to get. If it was me out there racing today, I'd be wanting the feather definitely before those 2 climbs, because that's going to, I still believe the Libby Hill is going to be what makes or breaks it tonight, and a feather will help you break that pack apart. Although an aero power up at the end, if we're looking at a sprint finish, that's going to be the one people want. I think the other ones today, if you're looking at sort of the drafting power up, that might be good if you want to recover in the pack. As you can see, we've got a very, very big main pack on the screen. Someone just dropping off the back, but it's going to be a big main pack until we hit those first climbs.
Well, and let's just talk about bike selection for a second, because we can see a lot of the Tron bikes, which is those fluoro bikes, if you will, the pink and the yellow. That's kind of the ultimate bike pick almost for any of these races. But if you don't have a Tron bike, Anna, what kind of bike do you think that these riders would be choosing?
Yeah, I mean, such an interesting question because what's happened in the last 2 days, and this will show those who know their Zwift game to those who don't, is the Canyon Aero Road 2021, which was released a few weeks ago, became the fastest bike in game, and you saw so many people riding that in the first race of this series. However, the latest update on Zwift sneakily has actually made that bike not the fastest anymore. So if you're looking at a good setup today, Tron is number one. If you don't get the Tron, you want a disc wheel at the back on the Specialized Venge S-Works. If you don't have the levels for that, then I'd be looking probably at the Envy wheels and as fast or a slippery frame as you can get. But if you can get the Tron, and you can see a lot of these ladies have, then that's the one that you want to be riding today.
It's very interesting what you say about the sneaky little changes in game. It really does pay to pay attention, doesn't it? I mean, you're a self-confessed kind of Zwift geek, so you're all over this sort of stuff. I feel like there's a real advantage in taking the time to understand all the ins and outs and all of these changes that happen.
Oh, exactly. I mean, if you want to be winning races, you've got to subscribe probably to GP Llama. That's the person I go to when we've got some Zwift updates, and also Zwift Insider. These are the publications that come out. You can, within 5 minutes, have all the information you need about little sneaky things like I talked about before with those bike frames. And we can see already that not many of these riders have got that Canyon anymore, and I believe that they will have been right up with the play, or their team managers have let them know, and they're on those fastest frames that they can get tonight. But I am just want to shout out to I think it's the BRT team. They've got colour matching Tron bikes. I love it, all the pink. So good on them for matching. It makes the commentary job easier to see where those guys are out on course.
Well, it also makes it easy for the riders because, of course, just like IRL racing, Zwift, it's a team event, and this is a points race, and all of the team can get points, and of course it's the team that leads the series, not an individual. So it does pay for the riders to be able to recognise each other quite easily on the screen. I think that's one of the complexities of trying to race as a team in this environment versus on the road, is that it is that little bit tougher to identify your teammates and make sure they're up there. So what we're seeing now is everybody is blobbing along quite well, and of course there's a 35%, isn't that massive, draft effect for everybody when they're able to sit within that wheel. It does not pay at this moment to waste energy and to go on that solo attack, because the chances of a solo or a small attack staying away in such a short race. So it's 32.5 kilometres. Generally, that's pretty short. It's only about 50 minutes of racing in general. And it is a case where nobody can really get let go off the front in the hopes of chasing them back.
Yeah, it is an interesting one, though. I would have said the same, although this morning, my time with the Women's Premier Division, there was a rider who went off the front for a good, almost full lap, and they're what I would call the sacrificial lamb of that team, and she gathered up all the points across the sprints and the QOMs to put them in a really good position at the end. So that's the part about the team tactics that is just awesome, as you start to see some little tactics emerging that you wouldn't really do if you were racing individually. And I can see that these guys are approaching the first sprint stage, just coming up around, I think it'll be this hairpin corner. An interesting fact with Zwift, a little top trick, is accelerating out of the hairpin can really get you a jump forward on the rest of the field. So we'll see if anyone knows about that tip, and if they'll put in a little bit of an early attack heading into this first sprint and the first points for tonight.
Well, you touch on strategy, and I think that's really interesting because we do have 10 opportunities to earn points out on course as they hit that first intermediate sprint, and we can see a lot of the drafting power-ups being dropped, and certainly 80 AHDRL, the Fluffy Bunnies, and the Ace of Kates.
Oh, we see an Aero. Perfect use of an Aero power-up surrounded by drafting power-ups, which really don't do much in a sprint finish, and we've seen O'Connell there from Aero using that Aero power up. Perfect use, and it looks as though, we'll see a replay soon, but it looks as though Aero may have gone 1, 2, 3 and gathered up all the points across that first sprint banner.
Well, it's certainly important. It is a points race out there. So for the intermediate sprints, there's 3. The first 3 will get 3, 2, 1 points. That gives them 9 intermediate sprint opportunities to take points ahead of that final sprint where the first 29 riders will take points. That's massive. Anna, before they headed into this sprint, we were talking and touching on strategy and early attacks. If you were only going for the finish, an early attack might be an absolutely terrible idea. But when there's so many intermediate sprint points, you can actually pick up a lot of those points in an early move, finish so-so at the end, and gain a whole lot of points for your team in the finale. That's a pretty good, pretty robust strategy if you have enough riders who can, as you say, become the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, it's all about game theory, right? Do you really risk it all and burn a lot of matches going for those intermediaries? Keeping in mind you've got 30 points if you win the stage. I'm looking at this Team Aero and they are looking extremely strong. They're definitely one of my early picks of the race tonight. They've taken out, I think, almost 1, 2, 3 across that first sprint. They're an awesome team that's come up over this sort of lockdown period this year, and they've got some extremely strong cyclists in their group. One of them being Sophie Sutton. I'll see if she's racing tonight. She did very well in race number 1. I've seen Kim Garland out there on course as well, and she's a fantastic rider from the Aero team, 3rd place in the first race. So they're obviously strong, and I think they've actually come out here with a pretty good strategy. Although AHDRL and the purple kits there, they're going to be hard to beat as well. It's really going to be, I think, between those two teams tonight to see who's going to take this down.
And I think something worth mentioning, Anna, is that a lot of these women, they're mothers with young children. They spend a lot of time on Zwift in a capacity that they wouldn't be able to spend training outdoors. A lot of them are multitasking, not only looking after their children, but training at the same time. I can certainly attest to what that is like, and I'm sure you can too. So it's interesting, Anna, because I think we get a spread of riders on here that is far more diverse than we get in real life racing. And I think a lot of these women are absolute warriors. I love seeing it, and I love hearing the stories of the women who are feeling quite empowered and getting back into racing in a way that they may not have the opportunity to do so otherwise.
Oh, exactly. You've got Kim Willocks out there. She was 2nd in the first race. She's a mum of 3. Unbelievable, firstly. I'm a mum of 2 and I can barely get on my trainer. She's a mum of 3, ages 4, 6 and 8. She lives in Melbourne at the moment, so she's got a lot of time to get out Zwifting. But she's a mountain biker. She loves those long stage races, and she's actually won the National Mountain Bike Marathon Series. But she got into Zwift exactly for the reasons you were saying, Katie. It's convenient. She can get on there when the kids are sleeping. And she's saying her strength is actually the punchy climbs. So maybe one to watch today with those 3 really punchy climbs in the second half of this first lap.
So the first 10 kilometres, and bear in mind we have 2 laps. Each lap is just over 16.2 kilometres. The first 10 kilometres of each lap, we'll say, is fairly civilised. There are a couple of sprints which are heated up, especially in a points race, but there aren't really any climbs. Certainly the second 6.2 kilometres is where it gets tough. So we're coming up to another point section here. And the riders really need to decide whether they're going to hold a wheel and just stay safe and stay out of trouble, or whether they're going to use their energy and try and go for these sprints. We have a couple of riders who are pushing at the front there again. It's the Aero Flyers, Fluffy Bunnies.
Yeah, there we
who
go.
are accelerating
it's
and making the move.
Another feather power up and use. Interesting time to use a feather. Might be a slight uphill drag here, and she looks like Aero has taken that out again with AHDRL, I think, in 2nd and 3rd there. So that is an amazing result for Aero. They've taken out both of the first sprint stages. Now let's see what they've got on the climbs, because that's where really I think this race is going to be won or lost. Like you're saying, Katie, that first 10K is pan flat. They've all stayed in a pretty big blob, and now they're going to hit a big downhill, get up a lot of momentum, and then hit those 3 climbs. But we do see some riders who have really been strung off the back here, and it looks like there could be a slight break, but with a downhill coming up, they may get caught. But I think they're looking at about 3 or 4 seconds, and it's an Aero rider off the bat. That's not what they want, and that Z-Sun rider is positioned perfectly. She'll just make the Aero rider do all the work to get back on, and there was an interesting drop there. So maybe a little strategy from AHDRL to just lose some of the strength in that Aero team.
Well, certainly we noticed that there's such an elastic band effect. And it kind of taunts you. It comes up on the screen and it says 5 meters, 4 meters, hold the wheel. And I've got to say, you're sort of going, yeah, I get it. I'm doing my best, and you want to scream. And I've got to say, the heart rates of these riders are up in the high 170s. I mean, they are working hard. There's nobody out there that is taking a break. And 10, 20 meters, it makes a big difference. You have no draft effect in there anymore, and the bunch can certainly get away. I mean, they're going over 60 kilometres an hour here, and it's still only about, minus 1% to flat. Sophie Sutton, oh, gee, she's having to waste a little bit of energy here to jump across. That was a bit of inattention on her part.
I'm surprised she's been dropped. I mean, she was top 5 in our first race, and she's an under-17 cyclocross champion and part of the 2020 Victorian track team. I mean, she's got the cycling Palmares, and she'll be devastated that she's been dropped from this group. But she does have a teammate there with Reed, so hopefully if they can work together. I'm surprised, though, that Reed couldn't catch on that downhill. I think a little mistake was made. I saw her trying to get in the super tuck, which may not have actually worked, and just slowed her down a bit. And unfortunately, I do think 6 seconds back with a big group in front, now 12 seconds, I don't think they're going to catch back on. Great for AHDRL, fantastic for them. They've dropped 2 very, very strong aero riders.
Well, they're about to go on to Libby Hill. Now, Libby Hill's a real tough one. It's cobbled, and of course this will require some higher power. So you might look at the course description, Anna, and go, 6% for 600 metres. That's not too bad. That is absolutely not true at all. So coming into this Libby Hill, Anna, there's some more points at the top at this KOM. And they're really winding up. This is going to be the first really big challenge of the day.
Katie, I get really nervous just even watching this. This is probably one of the most brutal and horrible climbs you can do on Zwift. Every time you think it's so short, it's 600 meters, and every time I think I'm going to throw up. And it just absolutely decimates the field. We've got some really, really good competition ahead of us. I'm not even sure from this group, just seeing those very, very strong aero riders get dropped, I can't even pick who is going to come out on the top here. What will be interesting to watch is who's going to go early, because I think the ones who know this climb won't go too early, because it starts off a bit steep, then it flattens off, and that's where someone who knows the game and knows this course will drop a power up and drill it for that last 200 meters and take full points.
Well, this climb is a bit like the old climb in the Philadelphia Classic, where everybody pancake flat as you approached it, and the fight was absolutely on for position. And it's no different here. Their heart rates are high. Their wattage is starting to push up. 132 heart rate. I'm not sure that's actually not what we're seeing on the Zwift Power Live. It looks like the riders are working pretty hard. And you can see as they fan across the road, Anna, that they're trying to get the position at the front, because for some of these riders, especially the ones that aren't quite as powerful and aren't as climb inclined, if you will, the heavier riders is kind of like I was, and I was a sprinter. So this is what I would do. I would go right to the front ahead of this kind of punchy climb, because then if I needed a breather at any time, I could afford to take a moment, and just a moment, but a moment's rest, and drift back and make sure I grabbed a wheel at the back of the bunch. They need to consider their strategy going onto this climb. It's short, but it's a hard one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's a great strategy. You've got to play to your own strengths, and you've got to play to your own kind of rider type. Looking at this, I am trying to keep an eye out here for Daniela Rose. She was our winner in race number 1, and she was extremely good on the climbs. So I haven't seen her in this front pack, so there may be an AHDRL rider who has been dropped. But I do see Garland and I do see Willocks, and they were 2nd and 3rd. They are very good at these climbs, and they're just drifting into their pack, moving around, sort of chasing wheels, seeing what's going on. But as they're approaching this climb now, they're just going to round this little right corner. You're going to see the red lines on the road, and then it's game on. There we go. They're hitting that first climb. It kicks up pretty quick. Starts off at a little bit 3-4%, and then we're going up to that 7, 8, 9, 10%. And you can see some feathers being dropped right now.
Well, Davidson and Willocks from the Ace of Cakes. They have moved up. They certainly have shown a few intentions here. And an 8%, 9%. This is where it starts to get really tough.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got to say those feathers were dropped way too early. You've got to go round this flat little bit, round the hairpin corner, and that's where you drop them, right when you can put in your sprint, get the most bang for buck out of that feather. And someone in that group has not dropped a power up, and they know that, and we're going to see some being dropped, and that is going to make all the difference. As we see Garland moving away into that top 4, we've got quite a few AHDR riders up there. You can see them in those pink kits with the pink bikes. Only one Aero rider, which is surprising. A few feathers being dropped in the back of the pack now. We're going to see some sprints coming forward. We just see some positioning here. Those riders at the back may come forward. That is a big gap there from Davidson from AHDR. I'm surprised here. She has moved well ahead. Is he going to turn this corner? Great view there, just with one Aero rider. This is blowing it apart. They have strung out the field behind her. That is a huge gap. That is about 4 or 5 seconds, and she may take this out. But Garland, 6.4 watts a kg. She's coming up. She's got the feather perfectly played. Absolutely, hands down, fantastic use of that feather power up. Kim Garland, hats off to you. Chapeau. That was amazing. Perfect use.
Oh, that was a brilliant ride by Garland. I mean, cobbles are hard enough. Cobbles on a steep climb, they are exceptionally tough. It's not surprising that the field did spread out, that a lot of gaps opened up. But an interesting opportunity for Garland here. Does she keep going and go for some more points at that start-finish line? We'll see a replay in a second. But the field, Anna, has absolutely been split to smithereens. And there's a lot of riders that will be chasing very, very hard now. Still a lot of points up for offer. They're not even through the first lap yet. So, of course, 32.5 kilometres total. We're only 13.6 in. There are a lot of legs and a lot of lungs burning.
And you look at what Kim Garland's doing here, perfect. She's up on the rider behind her by about 5 seconds. She's just carrying that momentum through. She's gone through that downhill, and then this next climb is so short. I think she's just going to take away the QM points in this one too. So extremely well played. I'm so impressed by that strategy. Might just try and use that one tomorrow myself. Kim Garland, fantastic. Going to take out the second one with a fast chasing AHDR rider behind her, and she's got an Aero power up. So fantastic. She's had the luck of the hand today.
Well, she's going to be wishing right about now that she had a feather power up because she is about to lose these points as Davidson approaches. Can she get round her? Garland, what a ride up Libby Hill. But 23rd Street is proving to burn those legs a bit. Oh, they're close as they come toward that KOM.
Sprint. That's amazing. And she did it. Love it.
Garland, what a brilliant ride. Davidson came up on her hip. But it's almost like Garland was playing a bit of a game there, maybe a psychological game. I mean, if she meant that, that was pretty savvy. If she didn't mean that, she might be stashing that one in the back pocket for the next time, because a brilliant ride from the Aero Flyers rider in Garland there. She took the points on both of the KOMs. Davidson, she gave her a good run for her money. But Garland, she's now got a 5-second gap. I think Garland, this gives her the opportunity, Anna, to get a bit of recovery. So we don't even need to look at her and think, go, 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 this is your chance to ride away for the rest of the ride. It might actually be an opportunity for her to sit up, take a few deep breaths, and get a little bit of recovery. So let's look at this replay. Anna, pretty hotly contested sprint up Libby Hill.
Oh, look at that. I mean, a little bit late. I would have said that feather was dropped a touch late, but she got the win. So, you know, I won't split hairs over that. Perfect win there with AHDR just behind her and a huge break behind that. That, like you said, Katie, the field absolutely blown apart. And here she is, I think here on the second climb. Look at this, just getting caught by Davidson. And you can see those orange numbers on the right-hand side. She just... notice she caught up and right up to 8.5 watts a kg, and off she goes. She got the second QOM. So chapeau, Garland. Most aggressive racer of the day, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how the rest plays out.
So both Garland and Davidson prove that they have very good climbing legs. But on a course like this, it's actually more power than pure climbing. When the women raced around here, Lizzie Deignan won. When the men raced around here, it was Peter Sagan. Anybody who's a fan of cycling knows Peter Sagan isn't what we would call a climber, but certainly more of a rolleur, a puncheur, a very powerful rider out on course. And what can I say? Kim Garland is certainly showing the field the legs she has. So we now have a break of 4 up the front. And, we talked about bikes earlier, Anna. We've got 3 Tron bikes there. Maybe that is playing a bit of a role.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that is by far the fastest bike for this course today. And we're just seeing Preston here from BRT dropping off the pace of these 3. So I think now Ryan here from BRT at the front, she's dropping her teammates. I'm not sure what she's playing at there. You definitely want that benefit of the 2 BRT riders in that front group of 4, because you've isolated an Aero rider, you've isolated AHDRL, and they've got an 8-second gap. But she's got to be really careful. There's no QM points at the top of this climb. So it's just the finish line climb. So, I mean, if I was her, I'd be dropping back. They don't really have to do too much work here. They just need to work together as a team.
So every rider, Anna, is a little bit different in their strengths. Some riders, like yourself, a triathlete, you can go all day at pretty solid powers, and it is seriously impressive the numbers that triathletes in particular can just bang out all day, and also good time trialists. There's other riders who need the recovery. And I was that type of rider. I was a points race rider on the track or a sprinter on the road. And I could sprint faster than most people, but I also needed a break afterwards. And if you made me keep going, it was absolutely red line, and it was all over Red Rover. It's interesting to watch the different styles of these races emerging. We can definitely see that Ryan is very clearly happy to plod away at a higher watts per kg and just keep going all day. But some of the other riders, Garland in particular, we've seen that she's really punchy. I'm going to say that Garland is taking this opportunity to take a bit of rest and recovery, take a few deep breaths so that she's able to put out those big watts per kg. 8 watts per kg she was doing over those KOMs. That is seriously, seriously impressive, but it does need a little bit of recovery.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll tell you right now, this is not a course for a triathlete. Having ridden it a few times, it's probably my least favorite course, because I like settling into that rhythm and just putting down the watts, and this one is just all over the show. It's kind of a game of 2 halves. You got one half easy 10K and then one half just horrible punchy climbs. Yeah, BRT, they're definitely playing some team tactics. We've got Ryan off the front, and I was wondering what her game was. She was dropping a teammate, but it looks as though they've got 2 more teammates who have caught back up in Preston and Shelby. This is, I'm not even sure what tactics they're playing here. I'm not a cyclist in real life, but Katie, can you maybe shed some light on what they'll be planning here?
Well, you make me laugh, because I think in our pre-race chat, you had some pretty choice words as to how you felt going over these climbs when you wrote it in game. I think BRT are playing a very, very smart game. Just like we've been discussing, they know that Aero Flyers are certainly in a position of power. And if we look at the team league standings, Ace of Cakes are the ones with the target on their back, but hotly followed by the Aero Flyers, the Fluffy Buns. I love these names. They are in 3rd position. Equal, though, with the Devil Kittens, and the Sunderstruck. Geez, who creates these names? It's fantastic. The Bombshells in 6th, and the Hellfire Kittens. Kittens, a very strong theme here, are in 7th. What I'm noticing, there's no BRT. Now, what that says to me, Anna, they've got absolutely nothing to lose. With 3 of them up there in this break of 5, they are in a very easy win situation when you consider the weight of the points. So, of course, it's a points race, and it is taken on team riders. Even if they finished 3rd, 4th and 5th, or in the intermediate sprints only picked up the 3rd position points, they're kind of in a no-lose situation. I'm really proud of them. I'm looking in on Zwift Power, and that's another way that you can watch this broadcast, also by watching the pictures on screen, but also following along on at zwiftpower.com. And you go to the live tab and you can see their heart rates, their powers, and I tell you what, it makes you sweaty just looking at them. But they are working seriously hard, but they've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I told myself I wasn't going to get too excited, but this is so exciting. I mean, I've not seen a team tactic like this play out so well in quite a while. They have completely isolated two of the top teams here. You've got an Aero rider alone, AHDR alone, and 3 BRT riders. If they can get to that, what I would call the magic number of 15 seconds ahead of that group behind, they could take this all the way to the line. And if they can get top 1, 2, 3, that could move them from 7th all the way up into that first place position, or at least very close to it. And they did actually come 3rd in the team time trial, right behind the Aero Flyers. So obviously they can do well in those every second week team time trials. So this race is shaping up really well, but they're only 13 seconds ahead of that chase group, coming down to 12. And this group behind, being led by that AHDR rider, being led by Aero, they're going to be really pushing to catch up to that group in front.
Well, so let's look at that break, Anna. We've got Erin Preston from BRT Hellfire Kittens. Let's keep with the cat theme here. Sarah Ryan from BRT Devil Kittens. Shell B from BRT Devil Kittens. We've got Dana Davidson from Ace of Cakes and Kim Garland from Aero Flyers. So it is a very strong group because Davidson and Kim Garland, Aero Flyers and Ace of Cakes, respectively, they're the 2 riders who went over that QOM leading, and there was a bit of a tussle between them. Garland ultimately took the point, but Davidson was consistently right hot on her heels and gave her a bit of a run for her money on 23rd Street. But they've now got some BRT kitten company. They're not too far off now, the next 2 intermediate sprints. So we've got 2 more before they will hit that Libby Hill and the 23rd Street again. And the BRT riders, they are absolutely riding to the nth degree of their ability so far. I'm super, super impressed. But what we do know from the first lap is that both Davidson and Garland will naturally excel over those climbs. So BRT need to capitalise on their position in this break, and they need to make sure that they're getting the maximum number of points they can on these intermediate sprints. Because, of course, it doesn't matter at the finish whether Garland and Davidson are able to get a gap over those climbs. Even if they finish 30 seconds ahead, it's on points. So this is a very big opportunity for the kittens, the BRT kittens, the Hellfire and the Devil Kittens. There's a theme there, isn't it? Feisty group of ladies there.
I think
going into this sprint.
I mean, I think it's quite interesting how this is playing out, because obviously Aero, other than wanting to get these sprint points, they don't need to do any work here. Neither do AHDR, because it's all up to BRT to try and increase this gap, which they've built up to 16 seconds. Over that magic number I say is about 15 seconds, they'll stay away. So I do believe this group will now stay away, mostly driven here by Preston. So the risk I see here, again, I talked about game 3. The risk here is they're going to use up all of their energy, and they may end up coming 4th and 5th in this group at the end, and that will still give AHDR and Aero the maximum points from today, just because they'll be able to sit in this bunch and not do a lot of work. But we are approaching the first sprint of the second lap, as we see a drafting power up being dropped by one of the Aero riders here, Garland. It's not a great power up to have in the sprint, as we see a BRT rider, Shelby, open up pretty early, but Preston as well from BRT, she's coming through. She may have the momentum here, coming through. Just if we can see if she'll beat the AHDR rider. I don't think she'll beat the thing. I think AHDR, Davidson took it on the line. Davidson, amazing riding. She took that out from that group. Bit of a late power up there from one of the Aero riders. And there we go, Garland coming through, but that was taken out by AHDR, amazing, against 2 of those BRT riders. So they'll probably settle down a little bit now. They've got a comfortable, almost 20-second gap, and I think they just do need to be careful there of Shelby, who took out that sprint early, didn't win it, and now is dropping off the pace a little bit.
Well, that is always... So my coach used to tell me, Anna, that you only ever need to win an intermediate by a single millimetre. And if you waste too much energy over the top of that, your competitors will absolutely take advantage. So we'll look back at a replay here. Shelby, she really accelerated and she made a very strong move coming into that sprint. Hotly contested though, certainly all going for those top 3 points. But Shelby, she eased off the power a little bit afterwards, and we can see she's already dropping quite back. But it's because Garland and Davidson, gee, they are impressing me, Anna. They really accelerated after the sprint. That is a really, really savvy tactic, I've got to say. That if you don't think that you quite have the acceleration or the power to finish it off, that you can attack. Now, if we look at the bonus point sprint classification, Davidson so far is leading. I gotta say, Anna, she is absolutely putting it all out there tonight. She's winning the flat sprint. She's also been second over those QOMs, of course, on Libby Hill and 23rd Street. They're tough. What that says to me, she's a very high power rider. Come that final sprint at the 32.5 kilometre mark, I think that even though she's been getting seconds and thirds in these flatter sprints, the other riders might be a bit fatigued, and it might be one for her. But I think we need to look at Garland and Davidson coming up to this Libby Street, to the Libby Hill climb, and it's when they hit those cobbles that it really gets real, because on that first lap, the bunch was pretty much Grupo Compacto until we hit those cobbles, and then it just blew to smithereens.
Exactly. I mean, the difference in this lap too is you've seen these guys put out those sprint watts. Their legs must just be feeling so heavy, and all they've got in front of them is another sprint, and then they've got 3 climbs, one of them being the finish line climb. So don't forget that there's no points on that from the first lap, but the second lap, that's all the points that you want to be getting. So, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to be these ladies. It's on tired legs. This is just one of those courses that is just going to decimate those quads.
Well, lucky you're in the commentary box, isn't it? All right, so the women, they have 10 kilometres left to race. The men are now out on course. They are, of course, also covering 32.5 kilometres of racing, and a much bigger pack for the men, which means a much easier draft effect. 35%, Anna, draft effect for anybody sitting within that blob. And the blob, I guess, is the affectionate term we use in the Zwift world to say bunch, but 35%, that is pretty significant. So let's take a quick look at the standings, Anna.
Yeah, so we started off, we've got Division 1B here, Aero Force, taking that one out with ZHQ Raven. So that's Zwift headquarters. Good job there. The Dirty Sprockets, that's Team Dirt. Love that team. Dad's inside riding trainers. That was actually the Bs. If we look at the As, you know, I don't want to have favourites, but I do have a favourite. I love Team Relentless. Chaos and anarchy is their catchphrase, and they seem to race like that, so we'll see how they go tonight. DPAC B and the World Elite Zwifters. So that's our top 3 in the men's race as we look at them starting out on those first cobbled streets. They're about to go around the hairpin corner. They're absolutely blitzing through this, as we also see the Division 1C here for the APAC men. AHDR, so strong across all divisions. Cryogen in second, and TT1 Carbos in third.
Gotta say, kudos to whoever is naming these teams. There's a bit of creative flair out there. So as the men come into that first sprint, of course, the same course as the women, and it is on a massive acceleration from Vitoni, but he's not having it his own way as Mosby comes over the top. He looks pretty set on that Tron bike with that green jersey. Isn't that very sprint appropriate? To take these first intermediate sprint points, and he'll take it. Mosby takes it ahead of the rider from All for Cakes. Goodness me, give me a cake. And the Aero Masters coming in third. Again, it's a team division, so the individuals are earning the points, and it's all about the team and how many points they can earn.
You know, Kay, I'm quite surprised that wasn't contested more. I mean, that was a clear outright win for that rider, and I thought with such a big pack, they might have been contested a bit more. Shows that they might be saving it for those climbs, which I think, as we've seen in the women's race, has been quite decisive. Seeing the replay here with Mosby, like I said, huge watts there, around 11.6, and absolutely clear win. I mean, obviously he had the aero power up, bit of a benefit there. Didn't see many others with that power up, so could be that he's just a bit lucky today, but that was a big and decisive win.
That was certainly really impressive. I mean, We're going back to the women now, but Anna, the women and the men are showing quite similar tactics. And quite honestly, if I was a team manager for either team, I would certainly be watching the other leagues and the other races to see what kind of tactics they're employing. So 5 women are still at the front here in the women's race. We're going to take a look at the sprint that they just went through. They're at the 25-kilometre mark, but of course they just had the second sprint in the lap before they head to Libby Hill and 23rd Street. So let's take a look at the replay there.
Let's have a look here. We see Preston leading it out from BRT with Shelby, who got almost dropped after the first sprint, but she's right up there on the second wheel. But it looks as though AHDRL, with those pink Tron bikes, so easy to see, is coming up on that right-hand side, leading into the sprint, which is quite a short one. And S. Ryan from BRT has taken, no, it looks like AHDRL, that is Davison there, has taken out, I think she took out that first one as well. So she's having 2 for 2 on the second lap.
That is really impressive riding. Now, I want to talk a little bit for a second, Anna, as they're heading into the final. They're heading into Libby Hill in a second. They've got 23rd Street, 32.5 kilometres in total. They're 26 kilometres in. Let's just talk for a very quick second about their normalised power. So normalised power is how much power they're putting out minus any zero power numbers, which, let's be honest, on Zwift there's no dead spots, so it's fairly accurate. A lot of these riders are between 240 and 260 watts so far for 38 minutes. That is a hard race. There is a lot of fatigue in these riders. Their heart rates are very high, but more than that, their legs are going to start feeling really dead. Now, heading into Libby Hill, which we've seen before, it goes up over 10%, but more significantly, it heads over those cobbles and into the QOM. Anna, their legs will be feeling really quite heavy at this stage of the race.
Yeah, I mean, this part of a race, before we go back to the men's, this part of the race is really just about who can suffer. It's all mental, in my opinion. Everyone's just as tired as everyone else. It's just who can suffer and get to the top quicker than the ones around them. As we cut over here to the men's race, and we're looking at the Aero team in front, just putting their nose in the wind here. Not sure on that stage. You really want to, on a pack this big, be sitting in the top third, just surfing wheels and not really expending any energy. But we can see they are coming out to a sprint. And again, Mosby here from 99 Bikes. He is absolutely drilling this on that green Tron. He took out the first one as well, and he may get caught here by O'Connell, who's coming up fast with 13.5 watts per kg. Connell may catch him, or Mosby may just stay away for a huge victory again. He can see, and wow, that was just a sprint for second, really. That was a very, very convincing win again from Mosby there from 99 Bikes.
Hannah, Mosby, over 15 seconds, has an 1106 watt average. Just pause for a second and consider that. There's a lot of people who can't even hit 1100 watts, let alone that be the average for 15 seconds. And it's O'Connell who is equally as capable, and he averages 1200, a whopping 1200 watts for that 15 second. It is no surprise to see these pair up there, but what will really burn their legs is that Libby Hill and also the 23rd Street climb. Anna, it's possible that they both know that the back end of this race will hurt, and so they're certainly getting those points early when they can.
Yeah, and I think we're just going to show a back to the women here. So they're just approaching that hairpin corner as they approach that Libby Hill climb. Now, this is their second lap. So these climbs are this could be who wins the race. As we saw in the Women's Premier Division earlier today, there were some big moves that ended up being the win due to these first climbs. But keep in mind, and this is where BRT got into this very strong position that they're in, is they didn't necessarily attack on Libby Hill or 23rd Street. They attacked on that final climb to the finish line. And I think if I was BRT, they've got strength in numbers, all work together and then start drafting off each other on that tiny little bit of flat and then hit that false flat and all work together. I think that's how they may stay away.
Yeah, they certainly need to work together. You're right, strength in numbers. I repeat that en masse on my Zwift community rides, because it doesn't matter whether you're racing or you're just trying to do an easy bunch ride. Numbers, 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 because you need that draft. We can repeat it all day. 35% is the draft effect. That is massive. Shelby, she is really impressive, Anna. She made a massive effort in the last sprint. She was a little bit dropped. And, I think she's a pretty tough cookie.
Yeah, she's riding at 5 watts a kg up here. I mean, she's got the disc wheel. She's dropped an aero at a very unopportune time. Again, best time is really around that after the second flat part, but she's obviously putting in a big attack here. 4 seconds back to that group containing 2 of her teammates, and this must be a team strategy, because this cannot be a solo for the victory. They know, I think, like you mentioned before, Katie, that Garland has got the legs up these climbs. So, and Davidson as well. And we can just see here Davidson from AHDR is going to catch her. So it was a little bit preemptive, I think, but it has split the field, but unfortunately seems to have split it a little bit not in favour of her own teammates.
It's interesting, isn't it? I think they've all got a little bit of the nerves under their belt, because this isn't necessarily the smartest thing to do. But Davidson has been solid all day. She was second in both of the QOMs, second up Libby Hill. In fact, Garland came over the top only just at the finish. She is slowing down a bit. She is suffering, and that gap is decreasing as Preston comes up to the back of her wheel. Garland isn't too far off, the winner of the first 2 QOMs. She was the first over Libby Hill on the last lap. You can see her because of that bright yellow Tron bike. Davidson leaves on the pink Tron bike, but Garland hot on the wheels. I think she might come over the
feather
top.
Feather power up. She's got that feather. Yeah, perfect use of that feather power up. I think she'll come over the top, roll over, take this climb. And to be honest, I think the 2 strongest riders in this group are Garland and Davidson. And if I was them, I would work together and stay away from the BRT riders, because they are definitely a bit in a class of their own.
So similar to the last lap, it was Garland who went over the top of that Libby Hill climb. She certainly knows how to ride it. But more than that, Anna, really impressive use of the power-ups. A lot of people talk about the feather as though it's only for climbs. Now, she did use it on a climb in this point, but it's also exceptionally good to drop when accelerating. Because if you have the acceleration of a heavier rider, but you get that feather, but you still have that oomph of power, I got to tell you, that's a little bit of a magic one. And Garland seems to be dropping them just at the right time. I think you're right. I think Shelby
what has she done? She's just
trying to
aero power up. She's dropped an aero power up on a downhill in the lead. She could use that in a sprint finish. I would be definitely putting that in her pocket and saving that for the end. So interesting use of a power up there. She was perfect with the feather. Maybe she can explain later in her the tactic there of dropping that power up, because I think, oh man, you just almost want to save that, have that in your pocket for what I think could be a sprint finish between herself and Davidson.
I think she's trying to go solo. I mean, I think that she thought maybe the aero power up wouldn't help her an awful lot coming up to this 23rd Street climb. But as we saw on that first lap, Garland is leading onto that climb, but Davidson is hot on her heels. But I think that Garland has this, because that gap is not closing. Both of the riders are working very hard. Their heart rates are over 180 for Garland, Dana Davidson, 190 heart rate. That is,
she was up at around almost 300 watts there. Oh yeah, I think I might call it early. I think Garland could have this. She's pushing. She's not even really dropping into a super tuck at the moment. She's just powering through these downhills, and she's got 8 seconds now on Davidson, even with that little donut of a turn she did on her bike right before the QM. Maybe a bit of an early celebration there for her, but she might take this away. I think 8 seconds ahead. She's 14 seconds ahead of Ryan and 17 ahead of Preston. So they've dropped the BRT riders. And Shelby actually has dropped into that chase pack. So Shelby obviously burnt every single match in that Libby Hill climb.
Well, we did see Garland just drop into the super tuck. So to get into the super tuck, for anybody who is watching but not super initiated into the Zwift world, you pedal furiously and then you freewheel and your avatar jumps into the super tuck. It's pretty satisfying, actually, to see your avatar play Peter Sagan or Lizzie Deignan for a second out there. Kim Garland, she's all over it. We questioned her use of that feather, but I think she timed it really well. She is not only physically really on top of things tonight, but strategically she is riding like an absolute champion. So she's had 4 of those intermediate victories, and it does look pretty much like she's going to take this overall victory, Anna. But Davidson has been exceptional tonight. She has won some intermediate sprints on her own right. She's finished second in a number as well. She's a few seconds behind now chasing, but she will still get the points for second.
And Davidson has actually been caught by Ryan from BRT, so that could be quite the battle between those two for second and third place, which a lot of points on the line. And the men's race is going on at the moment too. We will show replays of all of what's happening in that race. They're in their first lap, but we are just watching Garland come through here in this big, so brutal this course, just finishing with a huge climb, 8% here it just seems like eternity. But she's got 9 seconds now. She can maybe ease off a little bit, but she's not. She's riding at 275 watts, 185 heartbeats, so she is just absolutely monstering the end of this course.
I'm guessing from your commentary, Anna, that this isn't your favourite course to ride around. It's certainly very tough. It's not something you do when you wake up and think, I might go for a nice little recovery ride. Heads up, people, don't head to Richmond if that's what you're after. I think that the heart rates and the powers of these riders is certainly an indicator of just how tough it is. Kim Garland, she's ridden a brilliant race. It's interesting what the BRT team, the kittens, the Devil Kittens and the Hellfire Kittens have managed to do out there today. The Aero Flyers, Garland's team, they went in as hot favourites. BRT, they have certainly rattled the shackles tonight, but Anna, they haven't come out on top. Garland is riding away with this. She's done such a superb job. 16 seconds up so far and heading toward that finish line. She won't be beaten this evening. A very impressive ride for her, but we do stay tuned for the points race tally overall. And Ryan from BRT, she's riding reasonably cohesively with the Ace of Cakes rider there in Dana Davidson. But Davidson has proven to have very good legs so far.
I think, Katie, it's, we say BRT, hasn't been able to take out this race, but that team tactic has put 2 of their riders in the top 5, which they were nowhere near even the top 6 in race number 1. So they've been able to knock a bit of the AHDR and Aero riders off their perch and come into those top 5 positions. So great team tactics. They weren't able to take the win, but it has meant that they've been able to get some valuable points. As we see Ryan here, this is going to be a nice little sprint to the line with Davidson. She may take this out because Davidson has already dropped her power up. Ryan is out of the saddle, sprinting away. BRT in second. Fantastic. I would say team of the day. Those tactics were unbelievable. And we can see Preston here coming across in 4th. So great riding there from BRT. Didn't take the win, but chapeau, great ride.
Brilliant ride from BRT. So, of course, Kim Garland from the Aero Flyers took that win. Dana Davidson, Ace of Cakes. Now, Ryan and Preston, both BRT, and I think they were all working very well together. But Ryan from the Devil Kittens and Preston from the Hellfire Kittens. But Sunderstruck with Ebert, they are heading into that finish now. And we do have a lot of 1x1. Anna, it's not a group at all. There are no groups left in the women's race. We're going to head back and see what's happening over in the men's race. It's still early on. So they are heading into that second lap now. They've covered 17.5 kilometres. They are hoofing along. So far, they've had 2 intermediate sprints plus the race up Libby Hill. They've gone up 23rd Street. And they are now into that second lap of racing. Anna, it's a pretty big bunch and not dissimilar to the women, a lot of Tron bikes out there.
There are a lot of Tron, and I've just seen Greg Grosicki in that main group, and that's got to be danger for everyone there. He took out race number 1. He races for Team Relentless, and he has got an epic sprint on him and some amazing power. He's actually competed as an elite amateur triathlete for the last 10 years, but before that was a collegiate runner. Now, this is a theory I've got. I think runners make extremely good Zwifters, because all it is a matter of holding really high heart rate and putting in big threshold efforts over and over again with no recovery. And that's very, very similar to what you'd get with track running. He was a Cat 2 bike racer, but interesting enough, we mentioned this at the start of the show, he started Zwifting when his daughter was born. It was just a way for him to get good workouts in and have the convenience while his daughter was sleeping. So, great to see the dads out there as well. So Greg Grosicki, one to watch tonight, I think. And we're just going to have a look at
Big
the
shout out
Libby
to
replay.
the guys. All right, so as they went up Libby Hill, of course, it's pretty tough when they hit the cobbled section. Pretty hard fought sprint, but this corner is where it burns up to the 15% mark. Grzyski going over the line ahead of Cantazzaro, and Duffy Jr. following very closely behind. That was tough. They are putting out a lot of high powers to do that. And of course, Grzyski from Relentless taking the points.
Three Relentless riders all took out all the 3 points on offer. Relentless, just absolutely, like they say, anarchy and chaos. They have dominated that first KOM. Absolutely
Anarchy
dominated.
and chaos. What a brilliant name. How can you go past anarchy and chaos and Relentless? I think they're certainly putting their intentions out there, but they have opened a gap. Similar to the women, we're seeing a real split in the field here. And Anna, that's because, as we've spoken about so many times tonight, this course is just so tough. There's just no way that a bunch can stay together. So we'll head back to the live racing. They're going over 40 kilometres an hour. They've got just over 13 kilometres left to race. There's a pretty solid group that has come back together now. There's a good-looking blob, so they are getting that draft effect, and they will be able to save a bit of energy and to recover a little bit. They've still got Libby Hill and 23rd Street left to go, of course, and they do still have an intermediate sprint, and we've spoken about it so many times tonight. The strategy, Anna, do you go for those intermediate sprints and get some points along the way, or do you save yourself for the finish where there's a much bigger payload of points?
Well, I'll tell you right now what Relentless will do. They'll be going for every single point at every single place, including the finish line. That just seems to be the way that they race. And we'll see if we can get some coverage of the second climb replay here. And again, just like I said, look at that. Relentless. Dropping a feather power up. We've got Duffy there, Grosicki in second. Coming through, and they just got pipped there by S. Lindsay from DPAC. So didn't manage to take out full points on that 23rd Street climb, but 1 and 2 with Duffy and Grosicki. Amazing racing. And S. Lindsay from DPAC just managed to break their little momentum there. So good work from S. Lindsay. Probably one to watch coming through the end here.
So we're seeing some different names than we saw in that first lap, going for the sprint points, where it was Mosby from 99 Bikes and O'Connell from Aero who were taking those sprints out. They are still sitting in there, so we certainly haven't written them off, but they weren't as prominent over those climbs as they were in those flat intermediate sprints. And I guess that's really something very significant, Anna, is that those intermediate sprints are very different kind of rider than those climbs. Because the Libby Hill climb, especially over those cobbles, it goes up to 15% on that last hairpin. Ouch. That really burns the legs in a way that a pure sprinter who can take those intermediate sprint points, they will just suffer through there.
Exactly. And I'm just looking at some of the names scrolling through here, because we do have overall at the moment Team ZWC Attack is leading the standings, as we see Pat O'Connell. I think we mentioned him in the first lap. He is just coming through again, doing very well. From Ireland here, a racer, but with T. Shannon from World Elite Zwifters coming up at 12 watts a kg, but he may have left that run a little late, as we see O'Connell come through in first, Shannon in second, and our AHDR rider from Italy, it looks like, in third. Like I was saying before that sprint, though, we're looking at Team ZWC Attack, who's just ahead of Relentless with World Elite Zwifters and DPAC in fourth behind them. And you can see so many representatives from all of those teams in this main group. So this is going to make some fireworks in those last climbs as to what team is going to come out on top.
So they've got just over 10 kilometres left to go. Their heart rates are all well and truly very high now, 167. Really anything, Anna, over 160 says you're working pretty hard. It says there's not a lot of recovery going on. There's a lot of heavy breathing happening. And a lot of these teams, Anna, we talk about teamwork. So let's talk about what that means. These riders, they'll be connecting via Discord. They might be connecting even simply via a video service like FaceTime or Skype or Zoom or something, but they will be communicating so that they can continually check in on how each other is going and update that strategy.
Yeah, so most of these Zwifters will be using Discord, and that's just all of them dialing in. They're talking, I guess it's like race radio. I mean, Katie, you would have raced on the road and had that in real life. I personally have never raced with a race radio, but it makes it so exciting in the race to hear your teammates, how they're feeling. You do little check-ins, and probably one of the best things is you find out what power-ups all of your teammates have got. I am just a little bit interested here by our AHDR rider, just riding right off 7 seconds ahead there of Pat O'Connell. So this is a decided attack, but at an interesting time before they come up to the next sprint and then a big downhill. So 7 seconds, though. He's not messing around.
And this is the kind of attack we saw in the women's from Shelby. Now, it didn't work, and it certainly burnt a lot of matches in her box, but it is certainly something worth doing. And again, as you reference, talking on Discord, it is like race radio. They are talking to each other and they will be saying, who wants to give it a go? We need to put pressure on the bigger teams and we need to have a go here. And the other thing that race radio Discord, we'll call it race radio because that's what we are really talking about, them talking about what is happening during the race. The other thing that they'll be mentioning, not only sharing what power-ups they may have, but it allows it to be slightly more mindless, where there can be a team manager sitting back and directing them and saying, okay, it looks like these are the heart rates of people, these are how much people are suffering. Now is a really good opportunity to attack. You've got 2.2 kilometres to the next climb, etc., etc. It means you can just focus on riding your bike in a way, essentially, that your team director or team manager is telling you. Now, if you don't have an independent team director or team manager, Anna, you'll certainly have a rider in the team that plays leader on the road and takes the responsibility for those calls.
Yeah, and that's usually the rider who can sort of sit in the pack and relax because you can't really talk too much when your heart rate's up around 180. So you want someone who's a team manager who can kind of just keep an eye on everything that's going on, even watch another rider, see what their heart rate is. I mean, this was an interesting conversation I had with someone today, was in Zwift, nothing's hidden. So you can sit here, and if you're riding in the back and you want to see how fast this AHDR rider and how hard they're going, just click on them. You can see what their heart rate is, what their watts are, and I'd be a little bit concerned here because 160, I mean, I don't know how old this rider is, but it's not a really high heart rate, and they're riding about 5.2. They've now got 12 seconds on that chasing pack. Now, if he can stay away on this downhill and before those climbs, I mean, that's danger territory. You could be getting up to 15 seconds, and this chase pack on those climbs, they're not going to be a pack for much longer.
Well, that's a really good point. And I think that the tactics out here are very interesting, but we can certainly say that he is in kind of time trial mode. He's doing really well. He's very consistent. And if we compare that to the heart rates going on back here, we're watching TIKD. He's taking out some points there, but he's having to go to very high heart rate and very high power in order to do that. Fairly hotly contested sprint there for the second and third points. Of course, when you've got somebody off the front collecting that first one, it's certainly the easiest way to collect. And of course, the advantage that Vitoni has, Anna, is that he didn't have to burn those matches by sprinting too hard for those points. And his heart rate still remains around the 160 mark compared to the 180 mark of the chasing riders.
Exactly. You can just see from that camera angle, though, that group is coming back. They're just about 5 seconds behind. So I'm not sure what the strategy was. I mean, he's an AHDR rider. I don't see many of his teammates in that pack. So maybe he was just going for an all-out effort. He could have seen what the triathlete Lionel Sanders did a few months ago on Zwift, where on this course, he just did a monster time trial effort and managed to stay away against some pretty amazing riders, such as Mathieu van der Poel. So maybe he was trying to do that again, but I think he's going to get reeled on in just a few seconds ahead. As we can see, the team league standings here, Relentless, number 1 here, 37 points over DPAC, and then World Elite Zwifters in third with Aero and WTRL rounding out the top 5. But that is a dominant performance from Relentless. Couple of points ahead of Deepak and Wes, who are second and third tied. So that could be a interesting sprint finish between those teams at the end of today's race.
Well, Relentless do have the advantage, but certainly those top 4 are within sniffing distance. And I like to think that when you are that close on points, there's certainly, well, I mean, anybody who's watched the Tour de France or, of course, the Giro d'Italia, where the race after 21 days has been won in the final day, knows that it's not over until it is over. And I think a lot of these races will be taking each stage with the seriousness that it deserves, but also looking at the big picture and knowing that over the course of this racing series, they can certainly edge their way back up. They've covered 27 kilometres so far of a 32.5 kilometre race. It's 2 laps around the 16.2 kilometre course from the 2015 World Championship course in Richmond, Virginia. Of course, our winner there was Peter Sagan ahead of the Aussie Michael Matthews, and Navadakis was in third position. It was a sprint finish, but my goodness me, there was a whole lot of action and a whole lot of dirty, filthy weather on the day. Now, that is a factor that these riders don't have to come up against, Anna. They don't have to worry about the elements. They don't have to worry about the flat tyres, the broken chains, the falls, but instead Zwift tries to even that out with the power-ups, and certainly they do a very good job of that. So every time they go through one of these intermediate classifications, they will pick up a new power-up. We saw in the women how influential those power-ups were, and in fact, Kim Garland is not only the queen of the day, but I think she is the queen of the power-up usage for the women's race, and certainly in the men's it will play a big part. Vitoni's still off the front. He's only got a 3-second lead on what is quite a large chasing pack as they are heading now into a very tough finale. They'll go into Libby Hill and then, of course, onto the 23rd Street climb, but by no means is that the end of the race. That final 6 kilometres is incredibly intense, and it remains to be seen whether Vitoni can hold off that chasing pack.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. His lead is really yo-yoed there. He was down to 1 second ahead, and then he's back up to 4 seconds ahead. He's pushing 5.2 watts per kg with a chasing pack there with Rich only holding 3 watts a kg. I think they're just letting him hang out there. They're just letting him hang out to dry, and his watts are just going too high, I think. I think he's just pushed a little bit too much before these big climbs, and they're just sort of hovering. They're like sharks about to attack. It's not a position you really want to be in with the likes of Grosicki and Duffy there from Relentless, and Lindsay. You know, we've got a couple of Kiwis in that pack from DPAC. We've got Firminger and Lindsay who are going to be approaching those climbs with a whole lot of heat. He's pushed his lead back up, Vitoni has, to 4 seconds over that pack, who don't look entirely motivated to catch him. But I think everything's going to change when we hit that little red banner on the side of the road as they round that hairpin, and we will approach this Libby Hill climb in just a few seconds.
Well, Libby Hill, she is a nasty mistress, the old Libby Hill, because it gets to quite steep grades before they do hit those cobbles. But once they hit those cobbles, and you have to remember that in-game, cobbles in-game are equally as hard as cobble out of game. Some riders will choose to use the live effect and have they're trying to jiggle them around on the cobbles. I, for one, do not like to do that. It's a bit too real for me. I think the increased power required is more than enough for me. But of course, the riders, they're hitting the QOM now for that Libby Hill. They'll go up this steep section, but it's once they hit that cobbles that it gets real. They take that hairpin onto the final QOM banner, and it's up to KOM, of course, we're watching the men banner, and it's up to 15%. Anna, this is a brutal climb.
Yeah, and I'm so impressed with this rider here. He's managed to stay away 2 seconds, but this group has caught him up. And I just saw some ZWC riders catching up from Japan who just managed to reel him in around 7 watts a kg. These numbers are insane. 11.5 from Grosicki here from Relentless. He is putting in a solid attack with TIKD from ZWC. He was actually in 4th place in our first race as we see him pull ahead at 11 watts a kg. If I remember rightly, he had an amazing hill climb on him up some of those big hilly efforts in Watopia, and he's showing that prowess today as he pulls up to that 10.7. But we're seeing some feather power. It's been dropped at a perfect time with Grosicki pushing along on that pink Tron bike with power here from Deepak, looking like he's going to take it out. That hurts for Relentless. That hurts because Deepak is sitting just behind them on the team tally, and that may really pull them up to be close to that Relentless group. Although I didn't see a lot of ZWC there, and they're hitting number 1, and so they may be just dropping off that podium spot after today's racing. That was a very, very thrilling climb up Libby Hill, and we've got 23rd Street just around the corner.
Well, Relentless sitting, they were on 37 points, but Deepak on 35 points. That is pretty much nothing. That is a very close margin. And power, what an acceleration. And again, we keep seeing it. We keep saying it. We hope the riders are listening to us. These power-ups make a really big difference. So the use of them is certainly affecting the outcome of the racing. Grosicki, he's been racing. We talked about in the women, and we talked about those power tucks. Again, that is a big acceleration, and then you stop pedaling. It gives you a bit of recovery, puts your avatar into a bit of a power tuck. Quite a few riders employing that strategy. Again, it's a way for the virtual world to
we're
replicate
just sorry, Katie, we're just seeing world. A sprint here up 23rd Street climb. We can see power from Deepak pushing up at 12.5 watts a kg. He is pulling away in that deep dish wheel with Grosicki again. How is he doubling up on this? Grosicki and Duffy just behind. Looks like Relentless second, third, with K-Power from Deepak in first. So that is that is some amazing power. And now all they've got ahead of them is a short downhill and then a massive, massive climb to the finish with a pack that has been whittled down from about 40 riders, looking like now about 8 who may stay away. Got the compatriot S. Lindsay there from Deepak from New Zealand. He's made that front select group, but this is a very, very select group coming into the final climb to the finish. Oh, I don't even know what's going to happen.
Well, a whole pack of power tuckers, and you know what that tells me, Anna? It tells me that they need a little bit of recovery, and they're certainly taking it, because after that climb, they are not far from the finish. They're only about 1 kilometre out from the finish now, and power certainly powering over those 2 KOMs. Will he have the legs at the finish? Nearly 12 watts per kilo up those climbs. That is massive. That makes my head explode, my lungs explode, my legs explode. And I'm sitting in the commentary box. Imagine what they're feeling.
I know. We could just see what they're feeling. I just saw K Power there, who took out that 23rd Street, say, "I'm done." So there's going to be you got one climb to go there, Power. You've got to hold on. You've got to hold on. You're in that select group. Just stick with it right till the end. As we see actually a power up being dropped there. I call that the I'm in trouble power up. If you're in the bunch and you're dropping that drafting power up, you're in a bit of trouble and you're really trying to save some energy. With a feather here being dropped by Russ from XSU. I haven't heard from this rider at all. They've stayed really quiet for this entire race, and sometimes those are the ones you've got to watch. Although I do see Vitoni, the one who had the huge time trial effort off the front for that very long period of time, getting up to around 14 seconds. He's still in that main pack. S. Lindsay there, up to around 7.8. He's the Kiwi rider. We've got Vitoni. We've got some WTRL riders, World Elite Zwifters, and look at that, about 3 Relentless riders coming through in this pack. But that is 2 seconds now he's got, but you can see Cantanazaro from Relentless and Lindsay, they are dropping some serious power as they're going to round this corner and come into this false flat right until the finish line.
It is a really tough finish. By no means do they go over that 23rd Street climb and have an easy ride to the finish. It is still up 7%, and this is the point in the World Championships in 2015 that a lot of riders had a little bit of an attack, but it was also a time, Anna, where a lot of riders, we saw mushroom clouds as they absolutely exploded in their quest to become world champion. We're seeing a lot of power-ups dropped here. This is their last opportunity to use them.
Yeah.
If they have the right one, they'll use them into that sprint finish.
Grosicki, our winner from race number 1, has just been rolled over there by, is that Vitoni, the one who had the massive time trial effort at the start, obviously still has the legs. This is super, super impressive. I cannot believe he's been able to hold on and sprint for that win. Vitoni takes it out with Grosicki in second, and it looks like Lindsay, the Kiwi from DPAC, in third. What an amazing finish. Vitoni, how can you time trial for that long and then sprint finish like that over Grosicki, who is an amazing finisher of these Zwift races? Oh, that was phenomenal.
Well,
as we'll have a look at this replay.
Vitoni, what a finish, Anna. I mean, I think he backed himself for a bit of a breakaway. He clearly had good legs. Nobody keeps going over the top of a KOM when these are the KOMs they're in, unless they've got pretty good legs. We also saw, though, that he had the advantage, if you will, of the time trial, which meant that his heart rate was fairly leveled through that section up to Libby Hill. A lot of the other riders in the chase pack, their heart rates, they were absolutely through the roof. They weren't getting any recovery at all, and that allowed him to temper his effort. Now, he got caught on the early slopes of Libby Hill, but he clearly still had the legs, and a great finish from him.
Oh, I'm almost speechless. I have never seen a time trial effort be caught and then they go through and have the win. I mean, I don't know if that happens in real life. I have never seen that happen on Zwift. And that he is going to have some sore legs. And he took over Greg Grosicki just in those last 20-30 meters, who was our winner from race number 1. I mean, Relentless, again, amazing team out there. They've taken out so many of the points in the men's race today. Not sure how they'll sit overall. I'd be surprised if they don't push into that number 1 position. But Team ZWC, not as strong as they've been in the first racing. So they are the leading team time trial group, though, so they can always catch up next week.
Well, in both the women's and the men's racing, it was really aggressive. We didn't see a rider dominate from the beginning and right away. We saw points from one, points from another. They kept coming back. They kept changing. It was Garland and Davidson in the women who kept going 1-2 over the top of each other. Shelby had a brilliant attack. Didn't quite work out, but G did it animate it. And we saw the same in the men's. Anna, this was a really tough course, and I think a lot of the teams came in and thought, we've got nothing to lose. We may as well leave it all out there. And can I say absolute kudos to all of the teams, because if nothing else, it's pretty entertaining.
It was really entertaining. And I mean, I know, having ridden this course myself, that first 10K, it can almost get like, you get a false sense of security. You're sitting there, you're pushing out lowish watts. You're sort of you're just approaching those hills, which you can go all out in because you've saved so much energy for the rest of the race. I think we've got some replays here of the Libby Hill climb from the men's race, I do believe, where we did see IKD from ZWC take an early lead, but Grosicki pulling across on that pink Tron bike coming up, but then K Power from DPAC absolutely monstered that last 50 meters. I mean, he did say after that he was totally done. But he then went and did, I think here, the 1-2. So then went up 23rd. There he is. First place again with Grosicki in second. So almost the same from 23rd and Libby Hill. Same positioning with Relentless 2-3 in that 23rd Street climb on the second lap. And then his legs were completely toast. As we see here, I would say rider of the day in my opinion. Vitoni takes that time trial effort out of the saddle though. absolutely crushing it, with Grosicki really trying to get those watts up and being chased pretty hard by S. Lindsay in third. So, like we talked about, Katie, just some amazing racing in both the men's and women's field. This has been a course lit on fire tonight in this APAC round.
Really aggressive racing and really impressive numbers. I mean, we spoke about a couple of the men where their 15-second average powers were 1100, 1200 watt. These are phenomenal powers. And, I challenge anybody to head out on their road bike with their power meter and see if they can do anything near that, or jump on Zwift and see if you can. I, for one, Anna, know that I've given the old 15-second crack. It isn't anything like those kind of numbers. So we just have to pause for a second and say these are seriously impressive athletes. And the show that they put on, it's entertainment. But more than that, I think it encourages the league to develop and to grow. And it certainly encourages a lot of competition.
Oh, it sure does. Yeah, this team competition, it just lights it up every week. I'm absolutely loving it. And we're getting to know the riders, getting to know Power today. I hadn't seen him in the first race. And then we've got that Vitoni who'll be keeping an eye out into the races coming up. Just phenomenal riding from that men's race, but also the women's race. Just really lit up that Richmond course. Did it proud.
Well, and brilliant results all around. So a great race from the women. Garland and Davidson were the big movers there. And let's look at them crossing the line at the finish here. And let's see the results for the women. Anna, it was Kim Garland who took it out.
Yep, Sarah Ryan there in second, with Dania Davidson, who talked about quite a lot, in third place. Erin Preston and Tanya Cross. Tanya Cross actually did quite well in our first race as well. And then we had this chasing pack of Philippa Thomas, Kelly Murphy, Kate Ebert, Shell B, who we mentioned quite a lot, and Kim Willocks, who we talked about a bit at the beginning as well, rounding out the top 10. We look at the APAC Women Division C. So this was led out by Fatty B. It's a great name. Charlotte Lang in second. Shabby in third. Courtney Wheeler in fourth. Lam Kong in fifth. Margarita Williams, Aofi Reed, Jessica Hamilton, Amanda Nicole, and Beck Covington rounding out in the top 10.
We don't
Still
have
waiting on the men's
results yet, but we'll get them through as soon as we can. And, Anna, we keep talking about how competitive this is. What do you think the teams are going to discuss after this, moving forward to the next round? Of course, we alternate these points race formats with the team's time trial. But if we even consider the next points race, what kind of conversations? You've got experience managing and racing with a team in the community league. What kind of conversations do you think the teams will be having off the back of this?
Well, I think the Discord chat straight after a race is mostly talking about how awesome we are. So maybe they're all talking about how great they are, all the watts they were putting out, how fantastic it was. And then after all of that, I'd be talking probably about how we'll approach the team time trial. So you look at in the men's, Team ZWC didn't have a great race today, but they did win the team time trial last week. So they'll be really wanting to cement their position. And, if people want to watch today's race, obviously over on YouTube, and you can also watch all of the other races that are coming up. So APAC really kicks off the community league, but we've got a whole ton of racing coming up over the next 24, 36 hours. And you'll see different team tactics that people are playing from all different regions all over the world, which is pretty exciting.
And that's one of the big differentiators between this, because one of the best things you can ever do for strategy, Anna, is to watch back and watch your competitors compete. In road cycling, you might watch a broadcast, but you certainly can't see every minute of racing and you can't see everything that's happening. Zwift, well, it's a little bit different. You have access to so many pieces of data. In fact, it can be overwhelming. But if you have somebody who has a good head for numbers and loves a good spreadsheet, you can certainly take a lot of this information and use it to better yourself in a way that in real life racing doesn't offer. It's pretty exciting. It can be overwhelming, but it's certainly a big opportunity for teams to look at their competitors. And as you mentioned earlier, the game theory of it, to play the long game.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with Zwift Power, you can go into the weeds there, but that's probably the first place I'd go after a race. Look at what numbers were people putting out, who was doing the fastest times on the sprint, why were they doing the fastest times. So there's just an epic amount of data you can have. And I think, Katie, the men's results are coming up. So do you want to talk through how it played out today?
So let's take a look at the men's results. It was pretty competitive and brilliant racing there. So for the men, let's wait as this comes up. Vittoni, he was brilliant. Marco Vittoni, 5.5 watts per kilo. Let's just bow down to that for a moment. Greg Grosicki was second. Now, Vittoni, there is a bit of a question mark over his head. Hopefully that all goes good, but there's a lot of rules that these riders have to obey to keep that. Greg Grosicki in second, Sam. Oh, and look at that. It changes. My goodness, Anna. Vittoni is out.
Oh, the drama.
We'll have to figure out what happened there. Every good broadcast needs a drama. So Grosicki, he stands up and takes that win. It's almost like Alaphilippe in the classics. We saw that play out. Sam Lindsay takes second place. Jesse Raas, a brilliant move toward the end in third. Brian Duffy Jr. in fourth. P. O'Connell in fifth. Zaki Yama in sixth. TIKD in seventh. Tynan Shannon in eighth. Scott Cantazzaro in ninth. And Peter Wilkie took out that 10th position. And we're going over to the Bs now. Jay Bester taking the win ahead of Paul M. Dylan McLean in third. Casper Prinsloo in fourth. Andrew Gannon in fifth. Matt Nelson in sixth. Andre Fugner in seventh. Lee Rasmussen in eighth. Dmitry Sizikov in ninth. And Beanstalk. I love that you can use any name on here. Beanstalk in 10th in the men's APAC B. In the men's APAC C, Kevin Russell for the win. Max Nussbaum in second. Gary Gaffel in third. James Annan in fourth. Jerome Parkinson in fifth. Sheridan Halls in sixth. Ali Wright in seventh. Sean Connell took eighth. Julian Bayer and Jim Peachy rounded out ninth and 10th in the men's APAC Division C. So, Anna, we've spoken about how hard fought the racing was. We've also spoken about the strategic use of power-ups. Kim Garland, I'm going to call her the queen of the power-up usage because I think she did an absolutely brilliant job, not only racing but also utilising those power-ups. Of course, you're only given whatever power-ups you're given. It's random, but she certainly seemed to know how to use them and when. And, of course, in the men, bit of drama. It's like Days of Our Lives over here on Zwift Community Live. Vittoni, he got knocked off that top step, which is a shame. He rode really well. I'd love to. We'll have to wait and find out what happened there. We can unpack that next week on the broadcast. But a very hard-fought race in the men's as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, definitely Garland, amazing racing, and also relentless Grosicki. You don't often get 2 from 2 with those scratch races, and he's done it. He's taken race number 2. I mean, relentless, not as strong in the team time trials. Next week we head to Watopia, Magnificent 8 for that course. Be good to see what happens with those teams there, because as we saw from week 2, it shook everything up. So individual performances are one thing. Once you get in that team, you put down those watts. Let's see what happens.
Well, this week was certainly a very difficult course around Richmond, Virginia. And for anybody tuning in, jump on Zwift and give it a crack yourself. And I'm sure there's a few expletives that may come out of your mouth in doing so. Certainly Anna and I have a little bit of fun going around there, we could say that. Anna Russel, thank you very much for joining me tonight, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. There is so much racing going on, so make sure you stay up to date with everything going on at Zwift Community Live on YouTube, and we will see you same time, same place next week for the APAC. It will be a team time trial, a little bit different to the old points race, but we're here for the next 7 weeks, so make sure you join us. Anna, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Katie. See you all.
Mm-hmm.